It is difficult to say why, because here we are dealing with silencers. And I try to say in the book that sometimes silencers are as important or even more important than what is said, because often silencers are not deliberate. So which means that these are points that could be very significant with regard to what Ashoka is trying to say. Why doesn't he say that anything about the Varna system? It could have 3 or 4 different explanations. One is the Varna system did not exist in India the way it has been portrayed to be. Second is that he didn't know about it. It was there, but he didn't know about it. Or thirdly, it could be that he knew about it, but he didn't think it was significant enough to mention. It didn't rise to that level. So it was a thing that was there, but wasn't very socially or religiously significant, at least in his eyes. This is, I think, important because in dealing with ancient Indian history, we have looked at a set of texts from which we get most of the information. And those texts were written by a small group of elite male Brahmins, right? I have nothing against them, but they represent a very, very small group of people. So if we look if you look at India through the lens provided by them, we are looking through a peephole into this vast time and geography. So we need to find other voices, other statements. And one of the principal ones that we find from the 3rd century before Christ are the inscriptions of Ashoka. The fact that they are silent on this point, not only on the Varna system, the term Varna itself, but also the 3 of the 4 components of Varna, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. They are not mentioned in the inscriptions either. The only one to be mentioned is the Brahmana. But the Brahmana is mentioned not as a demographic group, but as a religious group. And they are contrasted to what Ashoka calls Shramana or Samana, who are the ascetics who live life apart from society, the Buddhist monks, the Jain monks, the Ajivika ascetics. They are the people who are called Samanas. So he thinks of the whole of the religious landscape of his time as composing of 2 kinds of people: the Brahmins, who were one kind of religious people, and the other, the Samanas, another kind of religious people. Brahmins, he doesn't say who Brahmins are, what they believed in, what they did, but it is likely that they were the hereditary priesthood of the time, and I think it is instructive to see at least part of what is happening in India at the time through the landscape provided by Ashoka. Centered in the early Brahmanical texts is a portrayal of society on the ground. So is it a sociology, in other words, right? A demography, or is it an ideology, a prescriptive take on what the society should be rather than what the society is? I have argued for some time that it is the latter, that they are much more prescriptive than they are descriptive. And in that sense, if we take what is given in those texts as somehow or other representative of ancient Indian society on the ground, then we are probably making a mistake, right? We are taking theological arguments, philosophical arguments, moral arguments as sociologically descriptive of society. And it is very difficult because much of the writings of this period comes from the Brahmanical sources. We have Buddhist and Jain sources, but often they are from a much later period. And they are often, as we find them, rather tinged with polemics against Brahmins. So in a sense, co-opting the Brahmanical arguments in a different way.